Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So this is basically to cover the kind of news that came out of the Suki Alone live reading that Dark Horse just did last night. So unfortunately I wasn't able to get out a video ahead of time to sort of kind of tell you guys that it was happening, but I did put up a community post a couple hours beforehand. But it is available to watch on demand. You just have to go right now to their Twitch page. I'll link it in the description, the video, their Twitch kind of VOD of it to watch if you want. I skimmed through it a little bit. I didn't have the time to kind of watch through it sort of in full. Part of that is just that, like, for the most part, these things are just kind of a little bit of fun. I don't really want to necessarily have to watch a full, like, hour-long Q&A when I know there probably isn't going to really be any news. So, you know, just know that it seemed pretty fun. As you can see here, they have a bunch of voice actors. Jenny Kwan is here for Suki Alone, of course, so that's kind of cool. Faith Erin Hicks and Peter Wortman as the creative team, and Cara O'Neill as the sort of on-camera sort of Dark Horse moderator. So, you know, pretty cool stuff. Most of it says it like it's an hour 26 long. Most of it is a Q&A. The actual reading is only like a fraction of the book and only takes a couple of minutes. But what we're here to talk about primarily is actually what was said by the moderators in chat in response to people asking about new and upcoming books. On camera in the actual video, the best I think we got was just sort of that Peter Wortman at the sign-off at the end just mentioned that he can't mention other projects that he's working on, and sort of everyone laughed. Does that mean anything for Avatar? I'm not sure, but I don't think we've heard anything about that creative team, you know, splitting up or anything like that. So we'll see how that goes. But the interesting thing was what was said in chat. So the moderators, and so there's two different moderators here. You'll probably know the second one. That's Jenny Blank. She's one of the editors. I think she recently got promoted. So I think she previously was an Avatar Korra editor and a couple of other franchises, but now I think she's a higher up editor. And then I'm not sure who the other moderator is, but as you can see, they have the moderator symbol, and that usually means that they work for Dark Horse. So right at the start of the stream, so I was like 4 minutes in before it properly really started, someone asked about, are there going to be announcements on this stream? So the answer was no announcements today, but some are coming very, very soon. So that's a very enthusiastic response. Like, I don't think we've ever really got a sort of wait and see type response that is so like, it's happening, it's coming, just not right now. So that gives me hope that it is like, oh, in the coming weeks, rather than at some stage within the next 3 to 4, 6 months or whatever, which is usually what it means. The word soon, when said by these people, often is just like, doesn't mean anything. Jenny Blank later responded to someone else saying, no new comics announcements today, folks, but news coming soon. So reiterating the idea that news is coming soon. And it's not just that, like, keep an eye out for anything we have to say. They're specifically saying news. It's all mentioned like announcements coming soon, news coming soon. And then a few minutes later, no comic news to announce today, folks, but stay tuned for future news. So what is coming up where news could happen? New York Comic Con is happening in early October. I think it's somewhere in the region of like the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th of October, if I remember correctly. So coming up basically in like just over 2 weeks, we'll be having the build-up, New York Comic Con will happen, and the aftermath to New York Comic Con. And even though, yes, we have the Braving the Elements live podcast announced, I'm not sure if the hosts, the guests have been announced yet. I doubt that they'll make the announcements at the live podcast, but we'll have to wait and see, of course, on that. But either way, it is a Comic-Con, and so the comic companies are going to use that window as a way to sort of announce things. There's going to be news happening around pop culture. So it feels like this has been at the time when we've got news years in the past. There's been a few times where it hasn't quite happened, but typically it's always been in or around New York Comic Con time rather than San Diego Comic Con time, where we've got comic news. So that fits in line with news coming very soon. That Comic Con, the hype around that will be where they maybe choose to make these announcements, because they do need to make announcements of comics sooner rather than later. As I said before, we only have Dark Horse books announced up to February, and the last of them was announced at this stage, a month or two ago. So because of that, that means we've sort of skipped over a few months where no books are like solicited to come out. Meaning that if they do make an announcement in the coming weeks, it'll probably be for a sort of like April, May, June, maybe even July release at this point, because we have February, we skipped a few months, and we're right into the middle part of the year, and there's no new books. Like in next year, the only new content, as I've said many times before, is the Chibi comic, and we don't really expect much from that. So all the news about proper Avatar comics, proper Korra comics, is why they have to say that. But interestingly that they say no announcements today, but some of these announcements, so they have multiple announcements, some of them are coming very, very soon. So that's interesting. Now, this is just my thing in terms of speculation, so don't treat any of these as being officially confirmed, though a lot of them are obvious next steps that will happen, I think. So what are the expected books in terms of, like, when they do announce stuff, what's it going to be? Imbalance Omnibus Edition is going to probably have to happen at some point. As of right now, we have up to North and South announced. The North and South Omnibus is out in February next year, so that would leave the last Avatar trilogy to do an omnibus for is Imbalance, so that will be one to announce. Now, the weird thing with that is that, the first 5 books are likely going to complete the spine image. Where does that leave the Imbalance one as just the odd one out? We've got to wait and see. A lot depends on other announcements, and I suppose. I have Korra omnibus editions here just because Imbalance is going to be, I suppose, the last like proper omnibus. Like, will they do the 3 one-shots as an omnibus? I don't think anytime soon. So the other story content that they would need to do is the Korra omnibus, and next year, 2022, is the 10-year anniversary of Korra. So I think they'll use that as maybe an opportunity to sort of do the sort of relaunch of Korra comics and the newer reprints of those books as well. Again, new nice cover for Turf Wars, new nice cover for Ruins of the Empire. That seems like a really cool idea to do going into next year. But, they're just stuff that, like, we think will happen. Reprint books, not a lot of new stuff going into them, but likely will happen. The Book 4 Balance Art Book 2nd edition, plus the deluxe version of that. This is the only one of the 6 books that hasn't, I suppose, been, like, revealed yet. So this is going to happen. It's going to have a new cover. And it's realistically going to have to be announced in the next couple of months because, again, the book 3 art book is out in February. So, give it like 4 to 6 months. And yeah, we are looking at like middle of the year into the kind of 3rd quarter of the year for the release of this book. So that is going to have to be announced at some stage sooner rather than later. Beast of the Four Nations proper announcement. Obviously, this book has gone through quite an ordeal in terms of it's had like 3 or 4 different release dates at this point. It is now currently in a sort of postponed state where it doesn't really have a set date, but it's clear that it is a book that they're doing still. But Dark Horse have never acknowledged it. It's just been all the kind of publishing websites that have mentioned that it exists, but Dark Horse has never mentioned it. They've never put this up on their website. So, but again, like I've explained before, this book is meant to be the 6th deluxe edition to complete those spine images. This is going to come out after the Book 4 Balance art book, which hasn't been announced yet. So the expectation for this is like late 2022, early 2023. That's why I think we haven't really seen official information on it right now. Library edition for the one-shots. This one, I'd be shocked if they didn't do this, because they like to reprint nearly all of the Avatar stuff in some way at some point. And just because, yes, it's a different style of book from a like storytelling perspective than the trilogies, but they still internally refer to it as like the Awesome Ladies of Avatar trilogy. There's like a theme to it. It's each one shot is focused on one of the female members of Team Avatar. They're made by the same creative team. Like, in that sense, nothing changed from Imbalance. It's just some behind the scenes stuff about how they decided to tell stories going forward. So I can see a library edition happening. They can do annotations for these 3 books if they want as well. They can do concept art extras. There's no reason for this book, in a way, like, not to happen. The thing obviously is, when will it come out? Usually they only leave like about sort of six months or so between the last release, but it's probably going to be more delayed here. Again, COVID is delaying everything, but I can see this being an announcement that they do make. And again, cool new cover. How would they do the cover for this, where like all 3 books are set in different eras, but for the cover you can just have it be the 3 characters, like and that could be really cool. That's something to look out for. And then I suppose the stuff that everyone actually wants, what do you think most of the people asking in the comments were wanting to hear about? And that is, when is the next Korra comic coming, and when is the next Avatar comic coming? So Korra comics we've known for quite a while. They've been teasing it on and off for the last 1.5 years. There is kind of a Korra trilogy in the works. That has been officially stated by Rachel Roberts, the editor on the Avatar comics. She literally mentioned on Twitter, there is a Korra comic trilogy in the works. She said that quite a while ago at this point, but after delays, I guess, and who knows what, like maybe they have to switch the creative team around a bit because of Avatar Studios, new artists and stuff like that. Maybe they're finally ready to actually make this happen. Again, Are Dark Horse and Avatar Studios, I suppose, going to let 2022 go by without a Korra comic in the 10-year anniversary? I don't think so. So Korra comic feels like it has to happen. This is the one thing where we actually do know that, like, you know, they've been building up to this for a little bit. New Avatar comics, it's obviously a bit of a weird thing where the whole situation where they're doing one-shots because Mike and Brian switched them from telling the Imbalance stories to telling the one-shot stories, and as Faith Erin Hicks actually mentioned in the live reading, they're working with Tim Hedrick now, not Mike and Brian. That's their official writer who's helping them make the story canonical, I suppose. Is that still the case? If so, logically you would then think that more one-shots would be the way to go. And again, they switched the format for a reason. There's not going to switch just for one trilogy. I think we'll at least get another trilogy. Now, will they do it where it's now the male members of Team Avatar? Will it be like Aang, Zuko, and Sokka? That's interesting. The issue you'd maybe have there is that Katara, as probably the most main of the characters that they did on the first wave of one-shot, probably had the weakest book because they set it at a weird point and it didn't have much to do. One-shots for like Aang and Zuko could go one of 2 different ways, I suppose. Because Aang has a whole life before waking up in the iceberg, it's in a different era. That opens the door to telling a lot of stuff if you go more than the backstory road with Aang. There's room to do stuff in between. There's room to do something with Aang in the comic timeline. So that's fine. Zuko has had quite a lot of attention in a lot of the books, but is there an opportunity to do something more to, again, fill in a gap, or do you do a backstory book with Zuko? It's an opportunity. And then Sokka, of course, is like, yeah, he needs some attention. It would be cool to get a story focused on him. But I definitely would maybe prefer the focus to be more on one of the more minor characters. Now, the thing here is obviously like, which characters will they see as being the most marketable? Because the books still have to sell really well, and there's only so much that you can do in regards to, like, if you put a too obscure character on the book and and you'll have a lot of people just being like, why would I want that one? So that's an interesting situation that they have. Now, the other thing is that they can do one-shots that don't necessarily have to just be character one-shots. I think we're maybe getting a little bit locked into the idea that it can only be one character solo focus, when no, they're just doing stories that are told in just the one book in 72 pages, and you can do quite a bit with that. So there's options depending on what theme or whatever like that they go for. Beyond that, I think it's just very difficult to predict what else there could be. The one thing I'd say in terms of like just complete speculation is that Korra probably needs a short story collection at some point, if not just to be the place where you can collect the free comics, so Friends for Life, Lost Pets, and Clearing the Air, the most recent one. You do need to collect them at some point, just because again, they seemingly like to put out physical copies of all of their books, and there's now 3 Korra short stories. If you could just do a few more, you could do a Korra Team Avatar Tales book where it's still only like 70-ish pages, and most of it would be those books, and you only have to do like a couple more. That would be a really cool thing to do, just to make it so that there's as few books as possible that are just exclusive to a free comic. But other than that, we are again left waiting. But I'd view the 3 mentions of like news coming soon, and very, very soon as being quite a positive statement from Dark Horse. Much more communication than we've had in months from them, and especially that first one makes me really think that like, oh, it is actually coming very, very soon. So they're my opinions on it. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. If you watched the full stream, what did you think of the live reading? But in terms of the news here, what did you think about these 3 statements here? What announcement is coming soon? What do you think will be the first thing that we actually hear about? These are obviously my guesses in terms of the really obvious stuff, but also the stuff we really want here. But what do you think is going to actually be the big news? So that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.